Hey, welcome back everybody to another part of this video series where we will be going over the Bach Prelude, BWV 998. Thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, or if you'd like to make a small donation, there are some links in the description which will take you to either PayPal to make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page and help support arts education. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to do today. So I did spend some time practicing, but not as much as I would have liked, which seems to be a common theme. This afternoon, I should say this morning, maybe this afternoon, well, today, I was sitting down looking through what I was playing, and my focus was less about the technical aspects, right hand, left hand, dynamics, and instead I wanted to try and understand the piece a bit more. And when it comes to Bach, there's a lot that you can understand. He goes deep. It's very complex, and there's a lot going on. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to obviously start from the beginning, talk you through some theory, some of the things that I've noticed as I've been learning the piece, and hopefully that's exciting to you. But either way, whether it's exciting or not, I think it will benefit you to know or to see or hear what it is I'm hearing, and that will help you make decisions that will help you in your decision-making process. And the decisions you make will probably be they'll make more sense, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. I'm going to play from the beginning, like I said, and I'm going to walk you through some theory first. So let's start from the beginning. So we're in D major. Obviously we have drop D. And we end on a G, so it's a 4 chord. Okay. One thing I never really noticed was the C natural. Obviously I've always played it. I've noticed it, but I've never seemed to pay any attention to it. But almost immediately he's softening D major as the 1 chord, simply because we're lowering that leading tone, the C sharp, which is normally in D major. We don't even play C sharp in the beginning, we play a C natural. So I just found that interesting. To G, this is G. And then, second measure, D again. This is E minor, 2 chord. Oops. And then we have this chord. 2 ways you can interpret this. You can see this as a C sharp diminished, which should be the 7 chord, because we're in the key of D major, right? So D, E, F, G, A, B, C, so it's the 7. C sharp, E, G, perfectly laid out for us, try it. But if you throw an A in there, which there isn't, but if you were to throw an A in there, it could sound like the 5 chord, which sort of makes sense because we have a 2 in the previous group of 8th notes, so E minor, so it's the 2, to the 5, and I mentioned this, I think, last stream for the Barrios. It was a 2-5 cadential package, I guess you could say, that leads to the 1. So there's an argument for it being interpreted as a 5 chord with the A being omitted, right? So you have E minor, A7, D, 2, 5, 1, really popular in jazz too, or E minor, C sharp diminished, so 2, 7, which is a completely viable interpretation, by the way. Back to D. So either way you want to look at it, it's a nice set of harmonies. Okay, so again, measure 2, D, E minor, 5 or 7, back to D. So I'm going to stop right here. So one thing I want you to understand, or one thing I noticed, is the phrase in this measure 3, it gets a little shorter. Now, I don't know if you remember, but you can see very clearly in measure 3, the end of measure 3, I have these last 3 notes bracketed off, including the first note of measure 4. And I always heard that as something separate. I heard this as a voice, and that's the end of the voice. And then this other voice coming in, and and then another voice coming in to continue the piece forward. Okay, so on and so forth. Now, I'm mentioning this because the first two measures, the phrase is the entire length of the measure. Whoops. Measure 3. The way I'm hearing it, and by the way, full disclosure here, I could be wrong. Interpretations are less about who's right or who's wrong, but more about it making sense to you. So anyway, so there's my disclaimer. I could completely be wrong. I could be hearing this way different than somebody else, but this is what I'm hearing, and so I'm just sharing that with you. So again, measure 3, the phrase gets shorter. It's no longer the length of the measure. To my ears, it sounds like the phrase, I'm not playing the bass by the way. And I think I just explained this. That's your phrase. Second voice comes in. Next voice comes in. Whoops. Okay, there's your phrase. Now the reason I think that is because, so you can see it clearly, in the first measure, you finish the phrase with a triad. Bum, bum, bum. Second measure, you finish with a triad. Bum, bum, bum. Third measure, the triad has moved over to the previous group of eighth notes. Bum, bum, bum. But that's not the end of the measure. You see that? Bum, bum, bum. So in my eyes, I feel like he's shortening it, and in a sense, that sounds like it's as if it makes it sound like the music is propelling forward and things are changing faster and faster. We're beginning the sort of development of this prelude. That's what it sounds like to me. Measure 4, same thing. We have, that's the end of the previous measure. Measure 4, we begin with the E. So triad. Bum, bum, bum. So that's the end of that phrase to my ears. And then this voice comes in again. That's the second voice that just comes out of nowhere, comes out of thin air. And then in measure 5, it continues. There's another triad. Bum, bum, bum. It's no longer at the end of the measure. It's now bum, bum, bum on the third beat of the measure. Or the 7th, 8th, and 9th beat of the measure, I guess if you want to be technical. The third group of eighth notes as opposed to the fourth group of eighth notes. And then finally, we finish off this whole intro, I guess you could say, to the piece with a bum, 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 A. And now we're in A major. All right. Now, you could make an argument that the final measure of this section that I'm talking about could be a phrase in itself, that whole measure. It could just be bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. I'll stop singing. Oops. Sorry about the slide. Let me do that again. That could sound like a complete phrase. I'm a little unsure of how to hear it. I guess it can go either way. But in the defense of the phrase being shortened, in measure 5, the third group of eighth notes, you have that triad again. And then you could hear this next 3 notes as this second voice that just kind of jumps in to take over for a split second. Right? But at the same time, we're not doing this largely. It's just a major third. So it's not as disconnected. So you could say that it's a return to the phrase being the length of the measure as we're finishing this section. Hopefully that makes sense. And we're on A. And we've already modulated, so now A major sounds like the 1, the home note. All right, so I wanted to talk about that. So let's continue with these same 5 measures, but let's finish with the theory. So again, let's start over. D, G, 1, 4. D, 2, E minor, 5 or 2, 5 or 7, sorry, 1, 1, which is D major, 6, B minor. By the way, I didn't change the fingers here, but I'm attempting to play it with these fingers, 4, 3, 2, because I want this F sharp to ring to get that separation. Since I am hearing this group of notes as a second voice, I want to create that separation by holding on to that F sharp. That'll sound really nice. Okay, and then up. All right, let's go back to measure 3, or let's start over on measure 3. D, B minor, so 6. What chord is this? That sounds like a 5. An E7. We're beginning. This is the beginning point of making the A sound like the one. A major. In first inversion, C sharp in the bass. B minor. Here's your 6. B minor in the key of A is your 2, right? So in D major, B minor is your 6. In A major, B minor is your 2. So in this instance, B minor sounds like it's already the 2 chord as opposed to the 6 chord. So I'm going to start on measure 4. E7, A major, but in first position, so it's a little weaker. But it sounds like A is home. B minor, in this case, it's now the 2. E7 again. So that's just the first 5 measures, and it's all going to be like this throughout. I didn't get to the end, but I got the first 2 pages pretty solid, even into the 3rd page. So let's continue. You know what I really want to do? If any of you have watched any of the instructional videos for the sagreras or the solo guitar playing, I re-notate, basically. I re-engrave. I guess technically I'm engraving the music, right? I'm recreating the notes. What I would really like to do in the future, if I have time, is put this all together on my own, put it all together on my notation software. And that way I could highlight what I'm talking about so that you can have a very clear idea of what I'm trying to say. Obviously, you're just looking at my notes, so there's a lot of just scribble. So it might be hard to kind of, find your way around. But I think whenever I end up doing that consolidated video of this, which may be some time, that's what I'll do. And I'll just dive deep into it, basically like what I'm doing now, on top of all the previous 4 episodes, I think. So anyways, a little bit of a tangent. So now we're in measure 5, and now A is the 1. A to D is 1 to 4. If A is 1, just like D to G is 1 to 4. D, E, F, G. So in the beginning, D, G, 1, 4. Measure 6. 1, 4, A to D. Oops. Same thing. 1. There's your minor. Here's your 6. I'm sorry, your 2. In measure 2, it was E minor, right? Because we were in D major. In this case, it's B minor. And this, again, can be interpreted as E7. Let's see if I can. I'm drop D, so that's going to be a little hard. But I can, you know what? I'll do E7. Right? Or it could be a G sharp diminished. G sharp, B, however you want to hear it, either way, you get that tension, that movement, that wanting to return to 1. 1. And again, same exact thing that we had in the first 5 measures. It sounds like the phrases are shortening to help propel the music forward. And again, you'll notice I didn't mention this. I have arrows pointing up, indicating where those triads are. Right? So if you go back to measure 6, I have D major with a little arrow going up. Measure 7, I have the 5 or the 2, the 5 or the 7, the arrow going up. And then in measure 8, the arrow's still there, but it's again, earlier within the measure. Things are moving at a faster rate. Okay? And then that makes it sound like these three notes. And they're bracketed off. So I guess I must have mentioned this before. That's your second voice coming out of nowhere to drop in and say hello and then just get out of there really quickly. Only this time, it sounds like that particular, let's see, I bracket now. In this instance, I think I should not have ended the bracket on measure 9. It sounds like it continues. I think I have a vague memory of me mentioning that. It sounds like this time the voice doesn't drop in and leave. It kind of drops in and then it sort of takes over. Because it's just the movement, there are no leaps to separate them. So it sounds like end of measure 8. That all sounds like it's a continuation as opposed to next voice. I don't hear it that way. I hear it all one voice. So that's what I'm hearing. So in this section, it sounds like we're starting to change things. There's some variety when you compare it to the first 5 measures. So let's continue. And there's your triad. Only this time it's going down. E minor with a G in the bass. E minor in first inversion. Okay. And then here's your voice, your second voice, just dropping in and saying hello. Actually, this does sound like a second voice, but again, it doesn't sound like it's dropping in, saying hello, and leaving. It sounds like it's dropping in and taking over earlier, just like it was doing at the end of measure 8. So at the end of measure 8, if you remember, okay, next voice comes in. At the end of measure 9, measure 10, measure 10. There's your phrase. That's what it sounds like to me. And it ends on the F sharp. And then you'll see the brackets. So I must have mentioned this before. The last 4 notes sound like a separate voice. Now, these notes in particular sound very important, and when I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I realize that this is the same things happening that I mentioned the previous Monday, where we talked about the E minor. When we talked about landing on F sharp minor in first inversion, and then landing on F sharp minor a second time, just in case you missed it, you didn't hear it. Here it is again. Those 3 notes, remember I told you I slowed down? It just sounded like it needed to be heavier, needed to be played heavier with more emphasis. Same exact thing is happening here. So let's talk about that. So, so there's our E minor. So there's an E minor earlier. Yeah. Yep, the E minor on measure 9 that I just talked about. We have this. There's our E minor in first inversion. This is where we're ending up. But again, we are landing on the E minor, a softer version of the E minor because of that first inversion. But we're already on E minor, okay? And then again, this is the 5 chord of E minor, B7. E minor in first inversion. Boom, solidly into E minor. Just like I talked about last week on the second page. We have it here on the first page, and I didn't even notice. Because I actually sat down and wanted to see exactly what it is, what's going on, right? Okay, so let's see. I'm going to start back on measure 6. So let's try it on measure 6. 1 to 4, A to D. 1 to 2 to 5 or 7. 1, whoops. What chord is this? I never bothered to figure this one out. I think I got distracted with the fact that the phrase is shortening and I forgot. So we have an F sharp, A, C. Diminished, F sharp diminished. In the key of A, B, C, D, E, F. 6, F sharp diminished. 6 is not diminished in the key in a minor, right? Yeah. Or maybe you didn't know, because we have the C natural there, so obviously no. Yeah, C is sharp in the key of A, so I'm just gonna leave it as F sharp diminished for now. You might want to, if I'm just thinking out loud here, if I'm gonna treat this as a phrase, and then the last 3 notes as a second voice, then it actually makes sense to hold on to that C natural. Right? What chord is that? It's still, well, F sharp diminished. Where are we going? E minor. So this F sharp diminished could already be a hint that we're going to E minor, because this could be the 2. Because in a minor scale, the 2 chord is a diminished chord. Ha! I didn't even think of that. Okay, so A, F sharp diminished, or should I say 2 of A, B, C, D. 2 of 5, or the E minor. I think I might be getting over some of your heads, but just stay with me here. F sharp diminished is a part of the E minor scale. That's what I'm saying. A, F sharp diminished, which is a part of E minor. Still the same chord, F sharp diminished. 2 to 1. There's our E minor in first inversion. 5 to 1 is going to sound more powerful than 2 to 1. As well as the root position E minor chord. Beautiful. E minor. Now the phrase is the length of a measure. Very clearly the phrase is the length of the measure. So one more time, back to measure 5. Let's talk about the phrases, the length of the phrases, and the intertwining of the voices. So measure 5. Whoops. Phrase. 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 Second voice comes in, drops in, and takes over. There it is. That's the end. Bum, bum, bum. Next voice comes in. These sound very connected, so it seems a little hidden. But if we're gonna be very, if we're gonna be very precise about it, it would make sense that we treat these 3 notes at the end of measure 9 as the beginning of the next phrase or voice that comes in, because it continues. And then it continues on forward. It sounds like in this particular case, the phrase ends on the F sharp, because we have a big leap from F sharp down to the A. It sounds like those 4 notes are a part of the voice that just comes in, says hello. I said that a couple times now. Says hello and just leaves. So there you have it. Now the phrases are the length of the measure. So here's our phrase. Next phrase. Oops. Next phrase. Boom. There's your first page. All right. So listen back to what I said. Go over it a couple of times if it's a little confusing. But I think that will help with your decision making. And one thing, just as an example, if you go back to measure 3, that sounds like the end of the phrase. And I mentioned this already, but I'm pointing it out because this is what I mean by knowing what it is you're looking at and understanding it will change how you play it. At the end of measure 3, or in the middle of measure, the third group of eighth notes in measure 3, I'm playing 4, 2, 4, 3, 2, so I can keep the F sharp ringing as I play those notes at the end. All right, and there's a clear example of I got to change how I'm playing this to match how I'm hearing it or how I'm seeing the notes interacting, the voices interacting with each other. All right? So there's the first page. Hopefully that helps see this piece in a new light, and perhaps you can gain a more appreciation for Bach in general. Okay, so let's continue on. So we're going to start at the end of the first page. Minor version of what we were playing. We have a minor version. B minor, by the way, the 6th chord, where we've modulated to the relative minor. D, E, F, G, A, B. The 6th of D major is B, 6th scale degree. You build a triad on the 6th scale degree in the key of D major, and you end up with a B minor triad. Or in B minor. Whoops. And he's doing the same thing. Here's our beating tone. You know what? I actually made a mistake. At the very first measure, the first time we do play C, it is a C sharp. But the second time we play it, it's natural. So I missed that one. So here we go. In B minor, we're lowering the leading tone as well with the A natural. Oops. What chord is this? That's an E minor. So in the key of B, what is that? B, C, D, E. It's a 4. 1, 4. Right? Just like D major to A. No, I'm sorry, D major to G. D, G is a 1-4 motion. B minor to E minor is a 1-4 motion. B, C, D, E. It's just a minor version of what we're playing. There's another diminished triad. A sharp, C, E. So it could be the 7, right? Because A sharp would be the 7th scale degree in the key of B minor. Or it could be missing the F sharp, which would be the 5 of B minor. So again, either 5 or 7. Right? Check it out. Same thing. Okay, if we go back to, oh, you know what? I didn't change pages. Let's go back to the end of measure, the end of the first page. You'll see the triads. Triad, bum, bum, bum. Okay, let's go ahead and change pages here. And now we have the same thing. End of the phrase, triad, very clear as day. Next measure. Triad comes early, right? Helping propel the music forward. Next voice drops in, says hello. Oops. Try that again. Okay. It leaves. Voice takes over. The other voice takes over. The returning voice, I guess you could say, takes over. What do we have? Triad, bum, bum, bum. Shortened phrase. Next voice comes in. Dum, bum, bum. Just 4 note little phrase. Next part. I'm just gonna play the voice. I'm gonna omit the bass for a second. This is measure 18, by the way. same thing. This is what I talked about last week. Landing on F sharp minor the second time sounds really heavy. Sounds like boom, we've established the fact that we're on F sharp minor. And the same thing. It sounds like in this particular case, you know what? Let's go back to measure 16. Let me walk you through it, because there's a lot that you have to remember in order to be able to understand some of the next things that are happening. Okay, so let's go back to 16. Okay, there's our voice. The end of the phrase, I should say. That means I'm going to hold on to D to create that separation. Okay, we have those 4 notes. Okay, at the end of measure 17, same thing. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Next voice. Okay, bum, bum, bum. That sounds like the end of the phrase. But, just like in the first page, these notes, B to D, are not that far away from each other. So the leap, or the lack of leap, makes it sound like those last 3 notes could be heard as a part of this phrase. So this final phrase is the length of a measure. And that is exactly what happened. Where was that? On measure 5. Same thing, just in case you need a reminder. Let's take a look at measure 5. There it is. Okay, I can't point to it. It's over here somewhere. Yeah. So if you look at measure 5, that sounds like, one voice. You could hear it as 2. Okay. And then, same exact thing happens on measure 18. And again, once we're here, we're going to go ahead and let's see. What does he do? No. Okay, so now we're getting into some hardcore development. Let's see. Yeah, the phrase is basically up to the D sharp. So measure 19. This is the end of the previous phrase. So the phrase begins on the second note. Now we're in E minor again. Hold on. These 2 measures sound like I feel a little lost. Like I don't understand it the way I would like to. Let's see, measure 19 again. Yeah, I think that's one voice. There is a leap, the leap of a fourth. F sharp to A, leap of a fourth. Sorry, F sharp to C. But it sounds like these 2 measures are standalone and you aren't very relatable to anything you've heard before. So I'm going to treat these 2 and I'm going to compare them to each other and play them off each other in order to make sense of it. So if you look at measure 20, I'm not going to play. Oh, okay. That's clearly all one phrase. One. I'm omitting D sharp, the first note of the measure, because that's the previous phrase. One. So if I'm going to treat that as a single phrase, then I think it makes sense to treat measure 19 as a single phrase, since I'm seeing these 2 measures stand alone. Getting caught. One phrase. One phrase. Same thing. So we can treat 21 and 22 the same way we treated 19 and 20. You can see very clearly, if you look at measure 22, look at the contour of the melody. It's the same thing. Okay? Down, up, 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 down, up, down, 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 down. Measure 20 does that. Measure 22 does that. So here's 20. That first down that I was using to describe, I was actually connecting the end of the previous phrase into the first note of the next phrase. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to be exact, and I think it gets a little confusing when I do that. What's going on? Okay, sorry, I saw a change in my my browser window on the YouTube live stream since I'm monitoring myself. What's going on? Okay, it's saying the current bit rate is lower than the recommended. I'm just going to keep going. Hopefully it works itself out. It's raining, a little windy. Maybe that has something to do with it. So let's continue. Measure 20. I'm going to start on the second count of measure 20, that B. Now measure 22, second count. Right, and we end up on D major, back to the original key, D major. All right, so that means we can treat measure 21 as a full phrase as well. So let's take a look at measure 21. This one actually does sound more like a separate, those last four notes plus the first note of measure 22, those do sound separate from the rest of measure 21. Only because we have a leap from G to B. Oh, okay, yes. I am treating this as a separate voice from the rest of measure 21. It's all coming back to me. So if you notice, I have some changes in the fingering, and that allows me to separate by holding on to that G while playing the next four notes. It allows me to hold on to G and let it ring while I play the last four notes of the measure. See, I'll do it slow. Let me do measure 21. Hopefully you heard that. Since you let the G ring, it sounds like it's continuing, and then we have something else entering underneath to take over. So that would mean in measure 19, I guess I'm still working this out. We can also treat ba-da-da, ba-da-da as the end. Ba-da-da-dum. I don't know, maybe. That, I have a harder time hearing that as two separate voices interacting with each other. So I may end up just hearing the measure 19 as one voice going through all the notes, and measure 21 hearing those separate. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I guess maybe I was trying to force continuity and some symmetry, but I'm not sure that is the right answer here. So it might just be a purposeful wrinkle just to keep it, fresh, keep the ear engaged. Who knows? So let's continue. Measure 23. Let's see. Oh, bar. Oh, it's D. Okay, measure 23, I couldn't really make it out. Like, it just sounds so different from everything else. I don't know. Maybe it's just a measure used to sort of I mentioned last time that it was this sort of false modulation to D major. I mean, it does sound like we end there, but he immediately changes and we end up in G major. I mentioned this last week. So maybe that's all it's for. I don't know, but I'm gonna leave that one alone for now. Measure 23 is actually the first time this how would you call it? I don't know if I'd call it a motif, but I guess I'll just say a 4-note motif for now. Measure 23 is the first time that this 4-note motif comes in, where you have and then it continues, or it happens again, I should say, in measure 24. And those I have circled because I thought that was the first time, but I totally missed it on measure 23. So in measure 23, the first time we come across, so a very clear indication that sounds like, yeah, so the F sharp is the end of the previous measure, right? And then it happens again. Whoops. So maybe that's what the measure's for. 23 is a measure to establish that. Hold on to that G. Hold on to the C natural. And then play these a little bit quieter. Maybe a little bit warmer if you can to separate them. And then now we're in G major. Now we're in G major. And then we are basically doing the same thing we did at the beginning, measure 1, and at the bottom of the first page, which was the minor version. Well, we've done it a couple of times now. So let's go ahead and continue. How much time we got? Okay, 17 minutes. So now we have G major. Whoops. End of the phrase, clear indication, we got that triad. G to C, 1 to 4. G, A, B, C. Right? And what is this? F sharp, A, C. So this could be one of two things. It could be 7, right? F sharp is a 7th scale degree of G. And we're doing a very clear triad, F sharp, A, C, 7. Or if we have the D in the bass somewhere, it could also be a 5 chord. Either way, we end up on G. It's just a motion propelling the music to the 1. But we are the reason it's in air quotes is because we've modulated, right? G is the 1, the acting 1 at the moment. And then in measure, this is blurry, measure 27. Okay, we finally we're entering a new part of the piece, something that we hadn't heard before. Okay, but it's built off of what we have, which is kind of neat. So we have, right? No, I played it wrong. There it is. Now we're hearing that motif all over the place. Bum 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 bum. We hear it 3 times and it's climbing down. Oh, 4th finger. Not something we expect. And then we have same thing. Ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. So that motif is just all over the place now. And it all started on measure 23. All right? Really, really neat stuff. Okay, my dog wants to go outside. Give me a sec. Come on, Bia. Come on. Outside. All right, let's continue. Let's go back to measure 25, it looks like. G major. To the 4, which is C. G major. To 5 or 7. And then that motif. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. And then hold on to the C sharp. This is all notated, I think, from the previous portion of this live stream, previous episode, I guess I should say. Hold on to the C sharp as you play the ba-da-dum. Make sure I'm using the right fingers. 3. And then ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. Now we're back to D major. It sounds so satisfying. All right, so let's continue. So now measure 30. I'm just going to go ahead and jump to the third and final sheet before I forget. So just keep that measure in mind, I guess. Okay, so now we have, I don't think I got this far. Might have. So the F sharp is the end of the previous measure. Oh, yes, I remember this. Okay, this is kind of neat. I'm going to actually go back to the previous page. So if you look at the bottom, last measure, bottom right, okay, I circled the B with a line connecting it to the A. You want to connect those because it sounds to me like that F sharp in between is this extra added note. I mean, it sounds great, but it's an extra. So check it out. I'm going to play measure 30, but without the first beat. I'll stop singing, sorry. All right, let me try that again. I'll do that again. Okay, so that to me sounds like the B needs to connect to the A and the F sharp. Maybe the D and the F sharp at the end could be treated in the same way, could be seen as the same thing. Extra added notes on top to fill it out, but what the heck was that? Sorry guys, I don't know what that was. Let's leave it at that for now. Measure 31. Measure 32. That's one way to hear it. Or you could just hear it all as one voice, in which case, back to measure 30. That's harder to sing. It sounds like those notes that I was emphasizing earlier, those are the main points. Just so I would connect those. And let's go back to the third page. And I circled them all. So you can see at the top of the page, you'll see the A in measure 31 connecting to the G. And then I circled, the A is circled at least. And then in measure 32, the G is circled, and that's connecting to the F sharp. All right, so let me go ahead and play that and tell me if you can hear it. Well, yeah, hit me up in the chat. I mean, I'd love to get someone to say something at some point. Or hit me up in the comment section afterwards if you're watching this at a later time. So measure 30. Let's try that again. What am I doing? This is what I mean by I was practicing. I wasn't practicing. I was figuring out the piece the way I'm trying to explain to you. And I wasn't really doing the technical aspects, which is why I'm starting to lose some of what is deteriorating already. I wish I could play better so you can hear. I'm gonna do that one more time. Back to measure 30. So this is not on the screen. Oh, my dog wants to come in. And then measure 33, we're continuing with the ba-da-dum. Ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. Sorry, it's not in exact rhythm. I'm just trying to demonstrate to you. 35. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. And then something brand new. Haven't played anything like this yet. Oops. Out of nowhere. I think this is G minor, right? Yeah, we talked about this, I think, either in the previous episode or the episode before that. And there's our G minor. I think maybe he's doing these double stops. Double stops, by the way, is when you play two notes together, right? Emphasize the fact that we're going to a brand new key. I mean, we've gone everywhere. We've obviously D major. We've made A major, the one. We've made B minor, the one. We've made F sharp minor, the one. We've made E minor, the one. We've made G major, the one. Now we're making G minor, the one. And perhaps maybe it's not as expected as all the others. Well, let's see. D major uses sharps. A major uses sharps. G uses sharps. B minor uses sharps. E minor, no sharps or flats. G minor is a key with flats. So that's further away. How many flats are in the key of G minor? Ooh, I'm testing my theory now. Let's see. G, B flat, E flat, sharp if you're going to raise the leading tone. So it's 3 flats. So that's pretty far away. So if you're thinking about the circle of fifths, so D major is 2 sharps. So let me see. Yeah, D and the sharps go this way. I'm trying to make sure I'm getting it from your perspective. So C, G major, D major. Now we're going backwards. C, F. I don't remember the other one. C minor? G minor? I could be wrong. But we're almost done with the piece and we're going to G minor. Like, what the heck? It's kind of sorry about the tone. And then there's Ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. And then we already talked about this last week. It sounds like it wants to crescendo here. I haven't practiced this in a while. A major, right? D major. And the rest just sounds like a coda, right? And I think I'm going to end it there a little early, so we're 4 minutes early. But I just haven't looked over the rest, and we're really just finishing it off. And everything I'm going to talk about is going to be basically what I've mentioned in the previous episode. See, same exact thing as the beginning. Might as well, I guess. Same thing. We talked about this. Now we're staying on G major. So I'm sorry, D major. We're staying on D major. We're no longer modulating, so some notes got to be moved around. Oh, we talked about this last time. The notes are circled. Make sure I'm on the right page. Yeah. The notes are circled. Those are the ones that you want to hold on to. This is measure 44. And then hold on to the G as well, by the way. So I should circle that G. Bum, bum, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. That's the bottom voice. Top voice. Sounds like there's two. They're kind of complementing each other and creating this sort of illusion of one voice. But it sounds like there's two things happening to me. Oh, my dog wants to go outside. I got a puppy, by the way, Doberman. He's like 3 months now. Yeah, he's either hungry or needs to go outside. So I'm gonna finish it here. We got 2 minutes left, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. Hopefully, you got something out of this. There was a lot of information on this one. So, and this. It might require a second viewing, I don't know. But if you have any questions or you feel like you were overwhelmed, let me know and I'll try and clear up any of it. But it's definitely required that you know at least a bit of theory, which is why some of you might feel a little lost. But hopefully I explained it in a way that makes sense because, I use some arrows, I use, this and that. So thank you very much for stopping by and listening and learning. Hit me up in the chat next time if you have a question while I'm talking about something, or just leave a comment and I'll try and get back to you when I can. But don't forget to subscribe. If you've been watching my videos, watching my live streams, and if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. Do it now. And of course, if you'd like to make a small donation on PayPal, you can do that. There's a link in the description below. And you can also subscribe to my Patreon, help support the arts and music education. All right. Enjoy your evening, and I will see you all on Thursday, where we will be continuing the barrios. All right, take care, guys.